ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Mentoring Monday. Welcome to another installment of Mentoring Monday, and I'm Dr. Jennifer Jones Morales. Mentoring Monday is a series of 12 episodes which deal with the mentoring relationships of authentic leaders and their upcoming titans. Over the last few years, I've interviewed more than 102 people from Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and Barbados. And what I want to unravel for you is the nature of the mentoring relationships that existed and that has caused these people to become the authentic leaders that they are. In this series, I will also take the opportunity to share the relationships between these authentic leaders and their mentees and how they are shaping them into up and coming titans. Today, I am so delighted to have Ms. Kerry-Ann Ifill, the former president of the Senate of Barbados, and she was the youngest president of the Senate in Barbados. And she has with her mentee, Ms. Janelle Woodle. I will ask Kerry-Ann to share a little bit about herself before we get into the discussion of the mentoring relationships. Thank you, and welcome, Kerry-Ann.
Thank you for having me,
Kerry-Ann,
Jennifer.
I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about yourself because usually I do an introduction. So let us hear all about your life story in a few minutes before we get into the discussion.
Well, as Jennifer has said, my name is Kerry-Ann Ifill, and I am totally blind. I was the first totally blind student to complete secondary mainstream Barbados at the Combermere Secondary School, up and on, as we say. And I was the first totally blind person to graduate from University of the West Indies Cave campus with upper second class honors in Sociology and Psychology. I then moved on to complete my Master's of Business Administration with the Durham Business School. I've completed a postgraduate diploma in non-governmental management. I'm a certified career advisor, and I'm currently working on a postgraduate diploma in special education. The reason for the last one is because I work right now with the National Disabilities Unit in Barbados, offering services as a consultant in the assistive technology training. That means that I teach other blind and visually impaired persons to use varying types of technology at school, at work, and just to get through everyday living. In addition to that, I am a disability rights activist, and I work with many agencies. I'm the current president of the Barbados Council for the Disabled and the Caribbean Council for the Blind. I've also served for many years on the executive of the National United Society of the Blind Barbados. I'm a very proud member of the Rotary Club of Barbados South, a member of the International Women's Forum Barbados chapter, and I'm also extremely proud to be Auntie Kerry, a Sunday school superintendent at my church of the Anglican Church of the Resurrection here in Barbados. In addition to all of that, I spend much time counseling and working with other persons living with disabilities and even persons not living with disabilities, because living every day means that we all need to share and work together in order to achieve other things. My other interests in life are craft. I do crochet, I do knitting, and I'm an absolute consummate reader. And I just love spending time with my friends and my plants, as well as my pets. So there you go. That's me in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Kerry-Ann. So let's start talking about the mentorship relationship and the first mentorship relationship. Where did it start? What was it like? Tell us a little bit about how that went. So from as early as you can remember, some persons have remembered from as early as Montessori school or kindergarten or primary school. So tell us a little bit about when did your first mentorship relationship start and with who?
Well, let me just clarify, with me as a mentor or a mentee?
But you as a mentee, as early as you can remember.
The earliest one I can remember was my beloved teacher, Mona Corbin. Mona was supposedly to teach just in the classroom, but she mentored me through so many other aspects of my life on how to grow up as a typical average person. My earliest recollection is the day she taught me to cook. She took me to her apartment and she taught me to cook mac and cheese. Probably that's why I struggle with my carb overdoses these days, because I always remember cooking that. But what was the important part about that relationship was Mona taught me more than how to cook mac and cheese. She taught me that blindness did not prevent me from pursuing anything I wanted. I was too short to reach the top of the stove, so she put me to stand on a box. I couldn't read the box to get the instructions, so she read them to me. And she was the person all through my early childhood, along with my family, that supported me to go after things and try things. She used to love when I came to school on Monday mornings to tell her what I'd done over the weekend. Not just the books I'd worked on or the piano lessons I went to, but she got excited when she heard I fell off of a bike that weekend, because it meant that I was trying to ride a bike. She enjoyed hearing about me going to the movies or enjoying playing computer games and video games with other children. She loved hearing about me working with others. She took me to dance classes with the children in her neighborhood. She invited me to spend time at her home, just being a typical normal kid. And that was important because she was the person I could talk to. She didn't make fun of me when I tried to be anything other than just normal. And she enjoyed encouraging you to be. And you might think I'm stressing the word normal. That's because as a blind person, as a person living with a disability, a lot of people deprive us of the opportunity to just be normal. They think if we fall and get hurt, it's going to hurt worse because we're blind. They think if we struggle with something, we're struggling harder because we have a disability. They think if somebody is unkind to us, that they're unkind simply because we have a disability, and because we have that, our skins must be thinner. What she taught me was people, whether you have a disability or not, struggle with something, fall at some time, are insulted at some point or another, and you need to be able to share that, to learn from it, and to grow with it, and most importantly, to pass it on to other people. So I found that as I grew up, with that example before me, I was able to counsel other people easier and from an early age because of what she was able to share with me.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing that, Kerry-Ann. So what would you say was the biggest lesson that she taught you? And what was the most valuable virtue that she passed on to you?
Perseverance. In one word, that is the most valuable lesson, and that is the biggest skill she passed on to me. Mona was the kind of person, that is, because she's still with us, the kind of person that does not give up, that does not back down because somebody says it can't be done, it hasn't been done, it shouldn't be done. And because of that, because of her relentless pursuit of things, it taught me that disability is not an excuse to give up, that you don't just throw up your hands in despair because other people don't get it, because other people don't think you should, that you continue to press harder and work more. It's not about getting up and having it easy. It's about, in spite of, working and persevering and getting there in the end. And she also taught me to dream big dreams. She gave me my love of, I would call it my wanderlust, because I love to travel, because she did her training in special education in the South Pacific, and she shared many of those stories with me. And because of that, she taught me not to be afraid. Sometimes in the Caribbean, we teach our people to be afraid to go outside, to try new things, to experience new opportunities. And between perseverance and the ability to take in and accept and encounter new experiences, those are the most important things. And I've been able to utilize those throughout my life in all different spheres, even in the simplest of tasks, even if it is trying to battle with getting something done in the kitchen, right up to making presentations at world conferences. Whatever it is, perseverance and the ability to overcome obstacles is what she gave to me.
Thank you. Now, tell us at what age did you first meet Mona? And tell us a little bit about your preparation for what we would call the common entrance or the C exams. And we call that the high stakes exams, CA exams in Trinidad now. But tell us about your transition from primary school into secondary school. So if you can give us some insight into how that went and how Mona played an important part and an integral part of your life during those years.
Well, you see, that's exactly what I mean. I didn't follow the regular path.
Yes.
I met Mona when I was 6 years old. And children who went to the school for the blind in those days, majority of us, when we finished school, we transitioned to the Association for the Blind and Deaf, Center for the Blind and Deaf, the equivalent to your Trinidad and Tobago Blind Welfare Association. Mona looked at her students, not just me, and she would think about what were your talents. There was a student who was a talented singer, so she entered her into the local teen talent competition known for its singing. She recognized a student that loved to run, so she encouraged him to go into marathons and to do distance running. She realized that I loved to read, and she recognized my love of academia. And so she encouraged me to read, she encouraged me to think. She took me on expeditions and outings, and she encouraged me to reach out and touch and encounter and embrace life. When it came time to do the common entrance, there was no such thing as common entrance for students like myself. Mona also taught me to be a rule breaker, because she was taking a class in Spanish, is one of the best examples, and she wanted to teach me to speak Spanish. The principal of the school at the time said, well, that's not on our curriculum, and Mona said, okay, no problem. So she didn't teach it in school time. She taught it to me during break time and lunchtime. So she didn't take an off period, because she spent all of that time with me, which means that when I was able to go into secondary school, I always scored top marks in Spanish because of that early foundation she gave me in the language. That's what I mean when I say she taught me to be a rule breaker. But there was no such thing as taking a common entrance for students like myself. So what did Mona do? 8 months pregnant though she was at the time, Mona took me everywhere to meet whoever she thought would listen to her when she said, this child needs a chance to try school. She tried everything. Unfortunately, it didn't work out the first time around. So what did she do? She had me over to her house one Saturday afternoon when she'd finally decided, well, I guess they'll find out when they do about her. And it just so happened that her roommate had a guest that day who was a news reporter. And he sat there mesmerized. He's looking at this blind teenager, and she's talking about playing the guitar and playing video games and her interest in things that normal teenagers are interested in. And he's looking at this blind child and trying to figure out, how is she doing that? Why would she be doing those things? And he thought it would be a really good story. So he interviewed me for an article in the newspaper. And I always remember the headline, Music Lights Up Kerry's Life, because I'm sitting in the photograph playing a guitar. And he asked me, what if I had a wish, what would I wish for? And when you're visually impaired or have a disability, most people expect that you're going to wish for your sight back or your disability to be gone. My wish was to experience secondary school for one day, just one day. And at the time, the then Minister of Youth Affairs was reading his Wednesday newspaper, and he saw that. And he decided, well, why shouldn't she? And so he invited me to his office for a meeting, and he was impressed with me enough to recommend that I went to his alma mater, Combermere Secondary School. And so there was a meeting with the Combermere School principals, and they asked Mona to send them copies of my most recent tests and exams. So I didn't do the common entrance like they normally did, but they recognized that I had the ability by papers that I was doing in school. And that's how I was able to go into secondary school.
Great. And tell us, what was that like for you? Because again, if anyone knows your story and heard your resume, they would know that you're a woman of first. As a matter of fact, you are a child of first. So,
unfortunately, yes, so they keep telling me.
I know that. So tell us, what was it like being in secondary school and having your dream?
It was one of the most phenomenal experiences of my life. Combermere School, they call it, some people have lots of different names for us, but one of the things that makes Combermere unique is it's a ground in which any plant can thrive. They encourage students of every ability. They are just that supportive. They always tell us up and on, go up and on. And that's what they did. The best friends of my life I still have were from Combermere School. The, the school in and of itself embraced me. They didn't stop me from pursuing anything. If I wanted to join the Literary and Debating Society, why not? I was a part of the school choir. I was in the job club, the computer club, the Girl Guides, anything that I felt like doing, they encouraged me to do. My games teachers found a way for me to participate in games until I decided that girls don't get sweaty, so I stopped playing games. But my point is that academically, I had one teacher, I'll never forget, when I was in third form, she says she walked into the classroom and was confronted with this child with this huge machine sitting on her desk. And it was the blind girl. Nobody warned her. Nobody told her this is what she was going to interact with. And she was brusque. She was angry. She was having it. She didn't know what she was supposed to do with this kid. You know what? She asked for me for the next 2 years. And she spent every Wednesday afternoon with me for 2 years, giving me extra tutoring to make sure that I passed math, because she knew I could with the right counseling and the right supports. And that is what that school continued to do all the way through sixth form. When I did sociology and Spanish and English literature, they supported and encouraged me. And so secondary school did prepare me to confront all the battles I could want, to change the hostile into the supportive, to work in any environment, to thrive and to exceed and so on. And not only that, but it was just a wonderful time to be a teenager. So I loved my school. And then when I left, I went on to university. And again, that was a totally different, but a thoroughly rewarding experience as well.
So was Mona alongside you again during your secondary school experience and into your tertiary level education? Talk about that transition, what happened after you left school, secondary school.
Mona is my second mother. That's what I call her. And so she didn't have a formal role in secondary school, or at least not an upfront role. But she was always there. When my math teacher didn't know what to do, it was Mona she called. When my teachers didn't know how to represent diagrams that I could understand, it was Mona that did them. When they didn't know whatever it was Mona that was there to support me all the way. But like a good mentor, she knows that that there comes a time when you need to step back and let your mentee fly and do what they need to do. So when I have tough problems to this day in life, I can call her and she will give me advice. It's up to me to take it or not to take it, but she will guide me and tell me what needs to be done. But like every mentor, she knows that it's not her life to live over. It is her opportunity to invest in another life and give them opportunities to grow and to be who they were to be, not who she wants them to be.
So definitely, you would say that Mona has in fact played an integral part and left an indelible mark on you becoming the authentic leader that you are today, right?
Definitely.
So I want to hear from you a little bit about going into your work life or your university life. Tell us a little bit about that. And when did you start taking on a mentorship role? Because I know you talked about being a superintendent in Sunday school and so, but tell us about when you started taking on a mentorship role to the mentees, the young ones.
Well, I started teaching Sunday school when I was 19 years old, and I still do it to this day. I won't tell you how long that is, but I've been doing it for quite a few years. And I always tell my teenagers from the time I started teaching Sunday school that my bed is the place they can come and lie and cry, that my ears are the ones that they can tell their secrets to, that I'm the one that they can tell anything to, and I won't judge them. And I can't tell you how much, well, I've had to change the mattress now, but how soaked it got over the years with the tears of all of my kids, because I encourage them to come and share and talk to me as much as possible. And that started, like I said, when I was 19 in teaching Sunday school. But I've always been the kind of person. Only this week I was recounting to a friend of mine who doesn't like doctors. I was telling her that I've had another friend for years who's terrified of them. And I had to take her to all of her doctor's appointments. She does it now by herself, but even now, she still calls me. And she calls me Nurse Hatchet because she says, I'm rough and I make her do things, but I also make her get better because I let her know that, yes, the pain is just something to live through. It's not going to kill you. And that's how I am. I try to let people know it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be perfect, but I encourage them and let them know that I'll always be here to help you, to catch you. And if you fall, I'll help you get back up off the ground. I won't pick you up, but I'll help you up. That's what's most important.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your work life and how was that, and how did you find yourself adjusting into the work life leading up to becoming the president of the Senate in Barbados?
Well, my work life and being president of the Senate had absolutely nothing to do with each other, I have to say. I worked first with the Barbados Council for the Disabled for a number of years, running projects, working with them as their research project officer. What that meant was that I carried out research on matters related to disabilities, and I conceptualized or worked with any programs or projects that we came up with. And that was fun. There was simple projects like one we came up with called I Feel Pretty. I Feel Pretty was a joint effort with the local community, no, not the community, technical college, where they had trainee persons in aesthetics and beauticians and such, and persons with disabilities who don't often get out to feel pretty were able to go and have their makeup and what's not done for very, very, very nominal cost because the students were working on them. And that was a wonderful experience. So something as simple as that as to running employment opportunity programs and stuff. Then one day I was sitting at my desk and I got a phone call, and this is in 2008. I also worked with the University of the West Indies at that time as an online tutor. And so again, my role as a support person comes out in my everyday work. And I was called one day and I was asked to give my CV, that the new government was looking for persons for the Senate. And I gave them my CV and forgot all about it. Until one day I'm sitting at my desk at work this time, because that time I was at my desk in my house. And this voice came on the phone and it sounded rather familiar, but I couldn't place it. And the person said, "This is David Thompson." And I was like, oh, the new prime minister. And he asked me if I'd accept the invitation to become a senator. I was totally shocked and flabbergasted because I could think of so many other people that would be more suited to the role. And I turned up. I said yes. I turned up on the day of my appointment to the Senate. And I overheard a conversation that I was to become deputy president of the Senate. And I thought, hang on, these people can't be serious. I don't have a clue what senators do, and they're putting me as deputy. And so that's what I did. And then the then president of the Senate became ill, and I had to act as president of the Senate for nearly a year. So the next thing I knew, the new prime minister at that time, because unfortunately David Thompson had passed, the new prime minister then invited me to become the president of the Senate in 2012. And that was the post I held until 2018. And those 10 years in the Senate were awesome. Awesome not because of, people think it was awesome because of the I went and the people I saw, but it was not that. It was an opportunity to show persons that a person with a disability, a woman and a young person, can hold offices of that nature with dignity and carry them out efficiently and effectively. While I was there, another part of my mentorship came out again because I supported and encouraged the growth of the Barbados National Youth Parliament. So all of those are opportunities throughout my life when I got to work with and encourage young people.
And let me ask you this question. How do you mentor only children or young people who are visually impaired, or does your mentorship span visually impaired, those who are able. I want you to speak to that a little bit, and if there are differences in how you do your mentorship.
No, there's not any difference. I mentor anyone, young or old, able or disabled. I mentor people because it's not about the disability, it's about life. Living life is the same for a person with a disability and without. When I state that, it's all about the face you put to it. There are going to be struggles and challenges irregardless. When you live with a disability, there may be more, but it's the approach you take to it that difference. Today, I was talking to one of my students. He is an international student, and he struggles with social interaction. He felt that my role, I teach him technology. So he was a shy guy, and he didn't want to ask about these things. But he finally broke down and asked these questions. And when he did, he said, I didn't want to waste your time. I said, this is not what I'm here for. I'm not just here to teach you how to make computers dance and spin. I'm here to make sure that you get through life successfully. And if that means talking to you about how to talk to other people, then that's what I'm here to do. And so that's what all people need. Somebody that helps them to see within themselves and get past it. So I work with anybody who needs support and encouragement.
So, Kerry-Ann, I want to ask you the last question before we end part one and bring in Janelle. How many active mentees do you have at this point in time? And how
That's
regularly do you interact with them?
That's a difficult one to answer because, as I said, I'm an assistive technology trainer, but but I don't just teach computers. So I would say that right now I have, okay, that's a big number. I'd say about 20 active mentees. There are those persons that I interact with on a daily or weekly basis, but then there are others that call every few months to ask a question, and then there's some that I don't hear from for years. But when they're about to make a big decision, they call up and say, would you, or could you, or how do I, or should I? And so I try to say, okay, why would you, and why wouldn't you, and so on and such. And I try to encourage them. I'm especially committed to those ones who just need somebody to talk to, somebody that their families don't get it. And that's usually more important than if they have a disability to me. It's more important if you don't have a support network in place, because I couldn't do what I do without my support network. It's not just about the mentors in my life. It's also about my friends. It's about my family. It's about the fact that no matter where I go, I seem to encourage other people to want to support, not to just stand there and do things for me, but to encourage me to do what I need to do.
Okay, so thanks very much for sharing that. We've come to the end of part one. So thank you very much, Kerry. And we're going to bring in Janelle in the next segment. So ladies and gentlemen, we will return to you in a few minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second part of our podcast on mentoring relationships. Today, I have the charismatic Kerry-Ann Ifill and her mentee, Janelle Udall. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Janelle at this point in time. So, Janelle Udall is a motivational speaker, an equalities advocate, and the first blind attorney at law in Barbados. She lost her sight at the age of 6 as a result of an accident. And in spite of this, she has repeatedly overcome all obstacles in her way to success. She was the first person in Barbados to sit the common entrance exam in Braille in 2007. Janelle later moved on to the Barbados Community College, where she subsequently became the 2014 valedictorian and earned a Barbados exhibition in the same year. In 2012 and 2014, Janelle represented Barbados in Panama and Grenada, respectively, as a member of the youth advocacy group of the United Nations Population Fund. She was also chosen in 2015 to do the welcoming speech on behalf of the youth of the region at the Youth Symposium with His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations. Janelle graduated in 2017, earning a first-class honors in her Bachelor's of Law degree from the University of the West Indies, Kerry-Ann campus. And she holds a legal education certificate from the Hugh Wooden Law School and a master's in public law from the University of the West Indies. Janelle's philosophy in life is where there's a will, there's a way. Thank you so much, Janelle, and welcome to Mentoring Monday. I've had a fantastic discussion with Kerry-Ann, so we're going to move on now as a mentee of hers to talk a little bit about your relationship with her and how she has impacted you and continues to impact you. So tell us a little bit about your first interaction with Kerry-Ann.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me. I actually remember when I was about 6 years old, my brother took me to a church. I believe it was a Saturday, and Carrie-Ann was there. She read some stories and stuff, and I just listened to her, and I was amazed. I actually enjoyed listening to her stories, and after that, she would have had me over at her house many times, just reading to me, and then I could call her at any time. We had several conversations over the phone. We would discuss stories and our love for reading and books in general. And that is how our relationship began, just over books.
So how did she interact with you? She gave you books to read and you all discussed the books. I mean, at the tender age of 6, how was it? Did you say to her you wanted to read certain types of books? Or you read this book just in
And
the same way she would have been talking to her Mona, who was her mentor when she was
yeah.
young?
At that time, I would have been learning to read Braille. So when I would go over to her house, she would show me all of these books that she had in Braille. And I was just amazed at all the different stories she had. And I would just sit there and just read with her. And then after that, she would call me on the phone and something. She would read stories to me or just tell me about stories that she had read. And we would discuss them as well. And that was just the beginning of our relationship. I soon learned
Yes.
I could call her to discuss anything that I wanted help with, or just to have a conversation, or if I just needed someone to talk to or someone to rely on, I could just call her up and we could talk. And that was our relationship for about, oh my word, 20 years.
So
Good Lord.
thanks for sharing that, Janine. So tell us a little bit about what was school life like for you, and how did Kerry-Ann help you, in dealing with school life, if she did. Tell us a little bit about how that went.
Well, I know she doesn't want me to give any hints at her age and stuff. She's older than I am. She wasn't there when I was going to school. But
Sure.
I know that anytime I had yeah, when I had any issues or anything I needed help with, I would call her. When I was entering school, because I actually went to the same secondary school that she attended, Combermere School, and
Combermere.
I
Okay.
needed help. Yes, I actually wanted to go there because of her. I thought that,
Oh,
hey, Carrie-Ann right there, she gives such a good review of the school. They should be more than prepared to have me. So that's the reason why I wanted to go there in the first place. And even after going there, many times I had to rely on her to help me to learn, how to use the computer. She helped to set up jobs for me. Anytime I would have issues, I would just call her up and she would walk me through them or just come over to my house. I'm pretty sure she could talk about how many late nights she spent at my house trying to make sure that I was prepared for school and have everything started.
well, I want us to ask a little bit about the preparation for common entrance because you're the first one who took common entrance in Braille, right? So I want to talk a little bit
Yes.
about the preparation for that at the tender age of 10, 11. How did that work for you, and how, if any, role did Kerry-Ann play as a woman of first in terms of blazing the trail, in terms of getting the infrastructure in place to have that happen?
Well, actually, I did a common entrance at 12 years old. I
Mm-hmm.
would have missed out a lot of time from school initially because, as Carrie-Ann would have told you, um, common entrance wasn't a thing for blind children
Yes.
at that time at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I was attending the Irving Wilson School, which is a school for the blind and deaf. And my parents would have pushed and begged and pushed and begged the Ministry of Education, the principal at the school next door, which was a quote unquote normal primary school, Lucky Batch primary school, to have me do classes over there as well. So I did classes at Irving Wilson School, which was where I was going to school primarily, and then I would take some days over at Lucky Batch to do math, English, composition to prepare me for the common entrance examination. So I would have had a taste of both the quote unquote normal school life and then the school life with children who are blind and deaf at the Irving Wilson School. Even then, at that time, it was very stressful. It was stressful. My parents had me going to lessons 5 to 7 days of the week, and I remember, you know, being nervous, not knowing what would happen. But I would talk to Kerry-Ann all the time, and she would just let me know, "Hey, you're a smart girl. You'll figure it out. You get it done." I think that's her favorite phrase of me. You're a smart girl. You'll figure it out. I mean,
But you
at
had a
first,
dream. You
yes,
had a dream of wanting to go to the same secondary
I
school as she
wanted to
did,
go.
right?
Yes, I did. I wanted to
Yes.
go to the same school because she would talk to me and give me all of these stories of when she was at Combermere, how inclusive it was and everything. And I just wanted to follow in her footsteps and go to the same school. So that was my goal and my dream. So yes, I went to the lessons 5 days a week, stressing myself because I wanted to, go to Combermere as well.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what was secondary school like for you up until you were ready to transition to university life at Combermere.
Well, my Combermere school life wasn't as, I want to say, it wasn't as good or lovely as Carrie, and hers was as she made her song. For me, yes, there were some teachers that would go out of their way to help me. I had a math teacher that,
Yes.
for sure, he used to come by my house every Sunday to make sure that I could follow in the math class. He would get Bristol board and a compass and just made lines on the Bristol board so I could feel the different diagrams and graphs. Likewise, I had a biology teacher that would get the Elmer's glue and different things. She used sand, she used cotton, she used rice grains, everything to make diagrams so I could know what the different diagrams for biology felt like. The leaves, the different parts of the body, the reproductive system, I could follow it in class. But on the other hand, there were some teachers that weren't as willing to help. I remember many times I had to make complaints because there were some teachers who just didn't want to read what was on the board. And many times I would say, I can't read what's on the board. Can you please read while you're writing? And they just weren't willing to change. And when I would ask one of the other students to help me, they would want to know what we were talking in class. And that just put extra pressure on me as a student. And many times, because a lot of the times the equipment wasn't working, we had a embosser that would print me stuff in braille and stuff, but a lot of the time it wasn't working. So many times that I do exams and tests the teachers would do it to me, talk through the test with me, and we would just go through the test. And many students would think because I was coming first in class all the time that I was getting, special treatment. I was being favored. And as a result of that, I had a very difficult time making friends at school because every time I would come first in classes, oh, that blind girl getting special treatment. So at a point in time, I began to start hating school. I didn't like going to school. It was just too much stress. There was too much pressure. It was just a lot of, I don't know, disappointment from every angle. I had a few friends I still have right now, but other than that, it was not as smooth as I would like it to be. Things got better, however, when I went on to Barbados Community College. I guess because we were all adults there, everyone was treated the same way, and I fit in more. I felt as if I was able to, you know, I was able to be a normal student there.
But what was Kerry-Ann telling you during your Combermere days when you were saying, but Kerry-Ann, what you told me and what I'm experiencing are different? I mean, she would tell you you're a bright girl, you could figure it out, but I mean,
Yes.
Kerry-Ann, this is what
See,
this is what I'm experiencing. So could you go back to saying like what exactly was Kerry-Ann saying to you that kind of made you feel let you afforded you the option to stick it through? I mean, because you
well,
continued coming first and you went on to tertiary education. So, just talk about it for the benefit of the audience about
yes,
whether
please.
Korean was playing a particular role in that part of your secondary school life.
Well, she was always there to lend advice about, different forms of technology that I could use, especially at school where their machines were hardly ever working. She was always there to, help walk me through different devices because at that time we had the PAC-Mate, which is like a device, has the capabilities of a computer, but you use it like a braille machine. And she was there, always there to help teach me how to do these things, show me how to do these things, how to make my life easier, not only for me, but for the teachers as well. And
Oh,
most, and I would say, foremost important, she was always there as a friend to talk me through these things when I was, depressed, upset, about to lose it. She was there to tell me, calm down. You have gone through so much before and came out on top. You could get through this. This will pass. She was just a friend. This is something everybody needs, especially in a time when they're going through adversity and don't know where to turn.
so Kerry-Ann, let me bring you into the conversation. Do you recall any specific set of advice you were giving to Janelle at the time? When
Yes.
she was experiencing these disappointments and stresses in secondary school. And secondary school life is really difficult, as it is. There's so many things
Yes, it
going on,
is.
yeah, so could you
Yes, it
talk to
is.
us a little bit about, from your perspective, what were you sharing with her, to give her the encouragement to continue on?
I remember especially one example when a girl that was helping Janelle out was another student. And when Janelle again came tops in the class, stopped talking to her. She suddenly no longer wanted to be her friend. And her parents, not Janelle's parents, the young lady's parents, were part of this. Now, in my time, good Lord, I never thought I'd live to be able to say that. Parents, parents would not have been encouraging in that. They would have said, just means you need to work harder, that kind of thing, as opposed to. And I remember telling Janelle, forget about them. Forget about the haters. Forget about the stupid people. There will always be stupid people. And just do what you know you need to do. And Janelle just continued to stride forward. She just didn't bother with it anymore. The truth of the matter is that that is what we're going to find. I remember especially when Janelle was going off to law school, and she called me up for advice on living independently. And I remember having a conversation with Janelle about it. You remember that conversation, Janelle?
Yes, I
I
do.
told Janelle, make sure I get there first so you can pick the room.
Yes.
Make sure you do
Yes.
certain things. We went all the way down to chores, but don't let others begin to think that you are the burden in the household because they have to do certain things. Find ways to fit in, find ways, because the truth of the matter is, people used to be a lot nicer than they are now. People have become a lot more
Mhm.
self interested and introspective. And because of that, they see people with disabilities as burdens, but in a different way. When I was younger, some people wanted to keep us as a burden, they wanted to keep us dependent on them. Now, people are. They don't want that. They don't want somebody that's going to that they have to assist and support. They're seeing us in a different light, and it's still negative, still very negative. And so I remember those conversations with Janelle, and she got through them. And
I
still came
also
first at
remember,
every opportunity.
yeah, I also remember when you told me when I was stressed out and depressed and down about it, you told me just remember these times because in the future you could look back and see how far you've come. And I use that every day in my life because in the happy moments, I can look back and say, hey, I've been through it. And even in my down moments, I can look back and say, I've gotten through that. I can get through this too.
Great. And so talk about university life, Jadiel. Talk about transitioning out to university life, getting there first, living independently. What was it like?
Well, first I did university in Barbados, but for me, the big challenge was when I had to move to Trinidad for 2 years for law school. Well, up to that point, I was praying that it would open a law school in Barbados because I didn't want to leave home. I didn't want to leave my parents. I didn't want to leave anybody. I didn't know how I would cope. And I remember
And
just
I
calling
wanted her
Carrie
to
all the
leave
time.
school. I wanted her to leave home.
Yes, yes, you keep telling me to go. And I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. But then I realized as time grew nearer, I'm not going to get out of this, am I? So I had some conversations with Carrie about how to make life easier for myself. So, yes, she told me about getting there first so I could get all my equipment set up where I wanted it to be so I would feel comfortable. She spoke to me about choosing the bedroom I would need, to make myself comfortable as well. We discussed different equipment and stuff that would make life easier for me living on my own. And even different places and stuff where I could get a lot of the assistive equipment and everything. And she was able to just walk me through it all. So I was able to, when I get over there in Trinidad, yeah, I was terrified, but I knew I could get it done. I could get it done, and I would come back in one piece, which I did.
Great.
And
So were the Trinidadians accommodating at the school? So you were in law school?
well, I was the first blind
How did
student there as well,
Mhm.
so it took a lot of work, but
I
eventually,
have to ask you
yes,
as a
it got better.
Trinidadian, you know?
Yes, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, as I said, I was the first blind student in the law school, so they were
Mhm.
accustomed to having to deal with persons with my disability. So, yes, we had to discuss the I needed JAWS on the computer. We had to discuss the format I would need my work in, that I would need assistance with the exams, as in to have it a soft copy on the computer and the extra time. We had to walk them through a lot of things. They didn't always get it right away, but they would always try. So yes,
And you would have paved the way for others to come.
yes, hopefully.
Yes. So tell me a little bit now about what has been your greatest admiration for Kerry-Ann. What has been the biggest virtue you've gotten from her? And I see from your resume you are now taking on a leadership role yourself. How are you passing this on to the young ones?
Well, I can say for sure that one thing Carrie has taught me is that anything, anything is possible. From just doing anything on the computer, doing work, doing research, and doing things in the kitchen. To that time where she and some other persons from overseas made me watch through British tongue, but myself, anything is possible.
Did I do that?
And you
Yes,
survived.
you did. I didn't think I would, but I did.
You know, Kerry-Ann is
um,
known for taking pictures on a horse, something that I've never done, you know.
yes, exactly,
Kerry-Ann and
exactly.
Kerry-Ann teaches people that they could do things that they are mortified to
Anything,
do, you know. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
She even tried to teach me crochet, which it didn't go too well the first time, but I believe I'll get it eventually.
Yes.
So one thing, that's the thing I've learned from her. Anything is possible, and I try to teach that to anyone around me, anyone who comes to me for advice, for help. As my bio says, I believe that where there is a will, there is a way. Sometimes it might take a little longer to find out how to get it done, to find ways to get it done, but anything is possible. So that is one thing that I definitely learned from her, and I try to pass on all the time.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to move on to now what have been the biggest takeaways in the mentor-mentee relationship. And, you know, in these high-end, high-valued relationships, the mentor as well as the mentee benefit. So I wanted to ask you all, what have been the biggest takeaways in your relationships? First, I'll ask Janelle, and then we'll end with Kerry-Ann.
Okay, well, as I just said, anything is possible. She taught me that. She also taught me that when you're trying to help someone, it's also very important to be a friend. When you are that person's friend, they're able to open up to you more. They're able to relate to you more. And you all can, just bloom and grow together. You can help each other better. So that's one thing I try to cherish and try to hold on to. Not only just tell persons, hey, you can do this, or life is gonna be better, but try to be their friend, to be there for them, to help, to hold their hand, to help them through what they're going through.
Great. Tell me something, Kerry. I want you to weigh in on this. What has been your biggest takeaway, or what have been your biggest takeaways from your mentorship relationships over the years?
Over the years, my biggest takeaway has to be to always be there as a support and an encouraging. I don't have the answers to all their questions, but I let them know that I will always try to help them find the answers. It's not about me. It's not about what I want. It's about what they want. And even if I don't know what they want, I help them to get to that space where they can understand it. I remember one of the most difficult experiences I ever had was the day that I took a group, not including Janelle. I took a group of blind persons and we went to the mall. And it was about an opportunity for blind people to show that through the programs we ran with the National Disabilities Unit, we were encouraging people to be out and about and transact their own business. And it was our misfortune that that was the time that there was a shooting in the food court at the mall. And the person that got shot was killed right there within 5 feet of us. I've never been so terrified in my life. But the guilt that overwhelmed me when we left that experience was one of the hardest things I had to deal with, because the next day when they brought the counselor in to talk to us, and I sat there, it hit me that all 10 of those persons that were with me, they weren't just students, they were my friends. And I could count back the first time I interacted with each one of them. The youngest person there was about 18 and the oldest was in their 70s. And I felt like I had taken each one of them and put them in harm's way, and it was my fault. And that was one of the hardest lessons I learned. And that was that as a mentor, as a guide, that you are going to face difficult and challenging realities. Hopefully, nothing as life-threatening as that one, but definitely difficult situations. But it is how you as a leader behave, what you do afterwards. So we went back to that mall 2 weeks later and we completed our task. We go out and about now. We do things still. It's it was important for us to do that. And as a mentor, as a leader, it is extremely important that you step forward and show others by your example that in spite of whatever it is they're facing, that they and you can overcome it. And you also have to show them mentors are not infallible. They're not perfect. They are not idols to be worshipped. We don't stand on pedestals. We face difficulties just like you, but it is the quality that we use to get through them, and it's the quality that we bring to the relationship. It's the quality that we bring to whatever it is we're interacting with that is going to define who we are, and in turn who the mentee becomes.
Yes, and thanks for sharing that. And you touched on something. I mean, we have focused on high quality mentor-mentee relationships in this discussion. But along the continuum of mentorship, there's also a section where there can be dysfunctional relationships. And Kerry-Ann, I want to ask you, has there ever been a situation where you tried to mentor someone and it didn't work out the way you would have anticipated it could have? And what happened?
There's always that. There's always going to be that place. But like I said, it's not your life to live over again. You're not living your mentee's life. One of the hardest things you have to learn is that your mentor-mentee relationship, it is your responsibility to guide them to be who they want to be, who they need to be. And if that doesn't meet with what the choices you would have made, you need to away from it. So as much as it might hurt and as much as it might challenge you, it's not about you. It's about them, and it's about them. So if they make a decision and if they make a choice that ultimately turns out not to have been the right choice, it's not about saying, I told you so. It's about saying, and now what are you going to do about it? How can I help you to do something more? How can I help you to change? And even when that doesn't happen, it's also about my letting go of that person, because guess what? It's not my life to live again, it's theirs. And even if I don't approve, even if I have to sever the relationship, sometimes that's the best thing that you can do for them, is to let them be free to make their choices and not be encumbered with your expectations. And perhaps at some point, if they're going down the wrong path, they'll say, you know something, I remember the lessons that my mentor taught me. I remember
Yes.
this, and they'll change their direction.
Yes. So
there you go.
Janelle, do you hear Kerry-Ann voice in your ears telling you, you know,
You're a smart
this is
girl. You'll
what you
figure it
should
out.
do in a situation like this? Could you, as Kerry-Ann is talking about this, could you talk a little bit about that? When you heard her and you wanted to do something, but you heard Kerry-Ann's voice very loudly saying no.
Well, I always hear her telling me that I can get whatever I want done. So I
Okay,
always remember that no matter what it is. Because I have
great.
a son now. And even
Okay.
in those stressful days when I wonder, oh my word, how am I going to get this done? I remember Kerry-Ann telling me, I can get it done. I can get anything done. Just have to find a way. And I'm a smart girl.
You
I'll
remember
figure it
that
out.
experience in the hospital? You remember that
Oh
one in the
dear.
hospital?
Tell us, tell us.
Yes.
Tell us.
Well, after my son was born, he was in the NICU for a while. And when the doctors came to me, and she basically asked me about my blindness and asked me when he goes home, who's going to take care of him. And I was upset because people just believe that just because you are blind, you can't do things. And it's not true. And when I told Kerry-Ann about that, she was upset. She was furious. She couldn't believe it. Because
Yes.
people just want to look at us and say, well, hey, you are blind, you are disabled, or even go further and say you're an invalid. You can't do anything. You can't take care of a child, and it's not true. It might take us at times, a little longer to do things. We might do things a little differently, but it doesn't mean that we can't get things done. It took me a while to learn that, but I was able to learn that, after a million phone calls to carry over the years.
Yes, I think that was one of the few times that Janelle ever saw me lose my temper, because I was so
Yes.
angry. And I told her, when you go back to that hospital tomorrow, you will tell the head pediatrician you don't want that woman nowhere near your child,
Oh
because
my
she don't
God.
have the best interests of your child at heart. The best interest for your child is to be with its mother, not to, and you will let her know that your grades probably exceeded her. How dare you? I was mad. I was so
Yeah,
mad.
she was. She was.
But what I was really angry. But what made me most angry was that was one of the few times I saw Janelle defeated. Janelle was
Okay.
upset, she was tired, she was frustrated like any new mother. And here was this person at a difficult time in her life coming to her with a hurdle she'd already not just overcome, but a hurdle that she kicked down and walked past a long time ago. And they're throwing this. I'm still angry about it. And they're throwing this thing at her. I was mad. And what I liked most, though, is the next time I spoke to Janelle, and I said, "Has that woman been near your child again?" She's like, "No, no." And she lied to me.
She would have known to say no.
Yeah,
I know. Oh, that woman again.
But more important than that, what happened, though, I think, was that Janelle recognized that even though she was confronted with something that, under normal circumstances, Janelle would have told her where to go with her thinking. But it was because she was so, emotionally drained at that point.
Vulnerable.
And that's what
Yes.
a mentor is supposed to do. You have to give people sometimes that extra fuel that they need to go back into the arena and fight. And she has one of the most beautiful relationships you could want to see with a little boy. And I'm happy to say that one pair of arms he loves to come to are mine. So it worked.
Well, the story ends well. And on that note, I want to say thank you very much both to Kerry-Ann and to Janelle, for sharing your stories. I think this has been a really awe-inspiring interview. It has been eye-opening, and I'm sure that the audience would have been very thrilled to hear some of the things that you all have been able to do, some of your accomplishments, how you continue to blaze the trail in spite of everything. I want to let you all know that we continue to tell everyone to stay safe. It's COVID time, and I suppose all of us are going through the challenges, but we have to stay safe. We have to do the responsible thing and do what is right, and really, really pay attention to the protocols. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you very much, Kerry-Ann. Thank you very much, Janelle. Continue to be, as I said, the champions for change, and we look forward to our next week of Mentoring Monday. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.